Welcome to US Rugby Happy Hour Live. Interviews with the biggest names in American rugby.
The New England Free Jacks, Major League Rugby champions. One-on-one to score.
Here are your hosts, Bill Baker and that other guy.
Hello and welcome to US Rugby Happy Hour. I'm Bill Baker. This is John Fitzpatrick. Okay. Hey, we're switch sides. Usually I'm on the left, you're on the right. That's all right. Let's try this today. It's a little different.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm used to it.
Hold on. There you go. How's that?
There we go. I mean, I'm used to you being on the far left, without a doubt.
Oh, okay then. Well, this is now a political show. Oh, shoot. Hey, how you doing, Fitzy?
I'm the least insightful person when it comes to that. But other than that, Bill, I'm doing great. I mean, how are you? Are you recovered from your big trip to the MLR Finals?
I am. I didn't. It was tiring, only because I felt like I was there for 3 or 4 days. It was just go. I think I got about 4 hours of sleep that Friday night before the match, and then not long after the match was over, I ended up heading back. I had to get back to home and get some stuff done. I was. It would have been nice to hang out for a while. I know the Free Jacks had a little party in Pawtucket and then drove up to Quincy to do this big celebration with fans later. So I was like, I'm not going up to Quincy. I'm going due west and home before anything. But it was a good time, man. We got to get into the game a little bit and talk more about it. But I mean, was this a special event for you? Like, I got to sit down. This is a game. Everyone be quiet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a championship game, so of course, and given the historic implications that could come from a certain team winning, of course, and one thing that I was looking it up because I was trying to find it, and I don't know if I'd seen it yet, but I was trying to look up the TV ratings from ESPN2 just to see how it did that day. But yeah, absolutely. It's like
how it did.
Yeah, don't know yet. Couldn't find it.
What did you think? So, by the way, what did you think of the broadcast? We had a really good booth. Phil Petrie, Ben Holden, of course, Dallin Stanford on the sidelines. And then I know Corpusero was involved, Brian Vicker, of course, Stacey Pates. So it seemed like a really good crew. And then I haven't actually watched it. I plan on watching the replay still. Mm-hmm. But what do you think about the broadcast quality?
Well, we saw the ending, so that's a plus. Well, and that's kind of, I said that in jest, but I thought the level of the announcers, the play, the reporting, just everything seemed like it was a higher quality, and it should be, right, because it's the championship game, it's the league's showcase. The action on the field was fantastic. I thought all the pregame shows was fun, stuff that you guys were doing, Matt McCarthy and Alex and Will, like all of it felt like the build up to a big game. So encouraged by that, and would love to see that rolling forward. I know there have been some issues and, with some broadcast stuff here and there throughout the season, but I thought it looked pretty good. Yeah,
the highlights I've seen so far, the natural sounds, the crowd noise and all that stuff sounds really good. I know a lot of these regular season matches, it's, doesn't seem like they really have crowd mics there for them, but and it's one of those rare matches where the announcers are actually at the game. And that means it's a big difference for them. And it's just, you feel it. And the whole weekend was a good build up to that broadcast because the Fan Fest is new for the championship game. And from people I talked to, it's going to be a regular thing every year. It's going to keep building on it. The Friday Night Fan Fest, and we'll talk about this for a minute. Friday Night Fan Fest at the Guild in Pawtucket was fun. It wasn't the biggest draw, but it was a lot of fun because I think a lot of people were coming in late that night. Even a lot of the Free Jacks fans drove down. Obviously, it's not far away from most of them. Good little crowd, but a lot of fun. They had a show up there. There was a VIP event with a lot of big names walking around the VIP event. This guy Bill Baker, I think you might have heard of.
Did anyone ask you for an autograph?
After the game, I had two young girls ask me to sign their jerseys, and I was like, "Do you know who I am? I'm."
So I thought you were Will Hooley.
John Fitzpatrick. Yeah. But some of the names walking around that Friday night, Fitz, like I said, Corpusero was there. I had a good chance to talk with him. I've actually never talked to him before. in real life. Brandon Sparks is around. Mike Ross, who's been on the show. All these people pretty much been on the show. Dallon's walking around. Like I said, Blaine Scully's good to see him. And a bunch of others. And that night myself and the Fantasy Ruckers were handing out T-shirts, stickers. People were signing up for giveaways. We're giving away tickets to the USA matches and a jersey for each match. Honestly, I don't know if it's such a close time frame. I don't know if any of these guys can be able to go. So hopefully those two winners can maybe give them to someone who can go if they can't make it.
Yeah.
But, it was a lot of fun. And then Saturday morning, same place at the Guild, but mostly inside, like a courtyard deal. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of fans coming in. The pregame show is recorded there, and on the other end of the Guild was us doing our live or a recorded show from 10 to 11 ish. And we had Vitas Carosella, a writer for Forbes magazine, join us for about 5 minutes to talk about rugby. He covers politics, economics, but he loves covering rugby. And then Brandon Sparks came on. He did allude to changes coming next year as far as the TMO goes, which is big news, by the way. The night before, he let us know that. I was like, wait, can we share this? He said, yeah, not, basically it sounds like the TMO will not be live, will not be like chiming in all the time. It has to be requested by the head referee from now on. Yeah,
I think that's fantastic. Yeah,
I do too. And I do think there's going to be some scrum changes coming because, as you know, in the match, I think Houston did get kind of screwed late in the game after another scrum down where it could have been a penalty try or a yellow card against New England, which obviously could have made a difference if it was converted. Well, that would have been converted. But anyway, it's good to talk to Brandon Sparks in person. Yeah. He's so happy. He's a unique guy. I'm not saying he's not professional. He's very professional. But he's just so open. He's like, hey, let's talk like this. He just really wants to talk about the game. And as director of rugby for Major League Rugby, it's obviously a good man to talk about that stuff. So you missed out a lot in the Fan Fest. There was maybe a few beers poured that Friday night. Maybe. But
maybe.
Yes. And then the next
responsibly, day, of course, though. Consumed responsibly.
Oh, of course. And there was shuttles from the Fan Fest to the game and great time, lots of fans. And again, the buzz at the stadium, Fitzy, was really cool. Fans come in. The Houston fans are great. New England fans were great. They got along for the most part. Later in the game, I was sitting in the club area where the New England Free Jacks, who were not suited up for this game, were sitting near me, and there were some Houston fans kind of mixed between them. And one or two of those Houston guys might have had a couple of drink, and they were maybe having a little go at it, a little too much, but I wanted to say, these are rugby players, right? Like real rugby. But all good stuff, man. All right, so let's jump into the game. I don't need to talk about the stadium. It's a cool little stadium. I thought it was great. They didn't sell the upper level seats, so I think that left maybe 7,500 seats to sell. Yeah, 5,700. It's not 10,000 plus at San Diego last year, but it's pretty good. And what I liked about it was everyone was tight. Were you able, like watching the broadcast, could you hear the chants? Could you hear? Because they were sitting in the stands, like diagonal across the way, that whole section was cheering either Houston or SaberCats. Or New England cheers. Could you hear that?
Yes, you could. And I think that may have made up for the fact that, I think if you're Major League Rugby, you're probably a little disappointed. The attendance couldn't have been a little bit higher, at least in that 8, 9, close to 10,000 range. But, I think had the stadium been announced sooner, and I know a lot of that was kind of outside of their control because it was a new venue coming online, wanted to make sure they probably hit certain timelines, like, okay, we can officially announce that this is happening. So I get it, right? More advanced planning gives people more time to settle in their travel, and they build out the fan fest and things like that. So that's all right. And yes, it worked out in the sense that being in Northeast, and I joked around about it, making sure the New England Free Jacks were there to ensure a home crowd. But it would be interesting to see next year what they do, right? Yeah. Do you look to try and go back to kind of the Midwest, and a couple of venues in mind, and the one that I think would be fantastic, given that the USA Women's Eagles set an attendance record there, with a soccer venue in Kansas City. Yeah. Where the owners of that venue are really high on USA Women's Eagles. it seems like, being in the middle of the country could be a good destination. They haven't really had a Midwest one since the Chicago Hounds hosted a few years back. So, something to think about. But it looked good. It looked good on TV, and the crowd noise, right, really
Yeah.
helped. Being able to
Yeah.
hear, and feel how much the crowd was into the match.
And I love on each end zone, there was red, white, blue, smoke. I don't know what they're called, flares, whatever. And then the other side was the or yellow and white. And we were very much like a soccer match in the corners. Everyone do their smoke and stuff like that. But even, I think that location in Kansas City would be great. However, every fan has to fly into that one. Could it be low?
I don't know. The Midwest, they love to drive there. Jumping
That's
in
true.
the car and driving 8 hours is like no big deal.
Tornado Alley. But San Diego last year, they've already drawn over 10,000 even for regular season matches. So it's no wonder there was 10,000 fans last year plus. That's a big rugby community there.
Yeah.
And then also people complained, like you jokingly, about the Free Jacks fans, a home game. Some people online were really giving it a hard time. Like, how, it's just great. No wonder why there's so many fans, whatever. It's like, well, what if San Diego made it to the finals last year? It would be the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Is it easy to get into Pawtucket, right? Do you have to, what's the major airport? Is it Providence?
Well, Providence is right there. It's a suburb of Providence, and there's an airport there. However, talking to some of the Houston fans, there really is no direct flight.
Yeah.
So if you're basically, they flew into Logan and Boston. Yeah. James Dealey, our friend James Dealey, flew to Boston and took the train down. There's a commuter rail that goes right in. Actually, it's
interesting.
It pretty much gets there right next to the Guild in Pawtucket, which is a 15-minute walk to the stadium.
Yeah.
So it's doable. It's just it's tough. Kansas City has a lot more direct flights. If you're sticking on that, look at cities like Chicago, a lot of direct flights and a little inexpensive. Providence probably a little more money to fly into, but there's everywhere you go, you're gonna run into situations that just doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Unless we have a game in Mexico City.
LA.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into the game, Fitzy. Clearly, I'm happy for both. If Chicago beat New England the week prior, I would have been happy for Chicago. And if Houston would have won this past weekend, I would have been happy for Houston. I just think it was a good all-around game. Were there mistakes made either by referees or by players? Of course. But I thought it was entertaining and a lot of fun. And also, when I mentioned about the broadcast, I think it's entertaining for those people who don't know rugby and maybe flipping on the channel. Like, it looked like a real event. Is that your feeling?
Yeah. The action was back and forth, right? And it came down to the final minute, which is what you want in a championship match, essentially, right? Like Houston, even though they were trailing, still had a chance to come back, still clawing away. And Houston can gripe that some calls were missed, but I think that's the element of sports that I don't want to be taken away. So the idea of less TMO, I think ultimately is probably a good thing because there's not too many interruptions. But speaking of the match itself, it was fun. It was back and forth. We talked about it last week. Unfortunately, I would love to see Jason Patros versus a David Kutzer fly half matchup. Obviously both were injured and missed, but still big names across the board. Paulo Bellicana, the guy is just a big game player.
Yeah.
You can just count on him scoring tries in some of the biggest games. And if you're a New England fan, you've got to be very pleased by how Brock Webster has just turned it on the last couple of weeks. Even after helicoptering. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Even after, getting taken out by Paulo Bellicana.
Oh my God, that was crazy.
Good thing he was fine, but still.
I thought he's dead. He's dead.
I know, the way he landed, I'm like, oh my God, you can't have this right now. The poor dude. Hopefully he's good, but good fun matchup, and kudos to Houston, right? They beginning of the season, had a good team on paper. I think a lot of people were expecting them to go pretty far. I don't think people expected Utah to put together the season that they did. And now they have a new head coach. We can talk about that in a second. But good for Houston to maybe exercise some playoff demons, getting some playoff wins, which they had, lost in previous seasons, make it all the way to the final, to come up just a little bit short. But I'm excited by. I know I'm skipping around here, but we got the USA Men's Eagles versus Belgium on Saturday. I thought Max Schumacher played really well. That matchup between him and Brock Webster was fun. Max Schumacher certainly, in the discussion, he's on the extended roster for the USA Men's Eagles. I thought he played particularly well.
Well, and he did. The stats show it. I do think he was the best player on the pitch for Houston in that match. He scored 2 tries, and he had if I remember the stats correctly, he's like tied for the most carries. He had the most meters made. The most defenders beaten. I think he had them. Oh yeah, he had 4 clean breaks, which is the most by 3. I think everyone else had 1 below him, and he did have 3 turnovers, which is the most in the game also. But that's an active player. He's playing a lot, and he was right there with, as much as I think Brock deserved that player of the match, and because of him, I think we're Ben Holden, all of us are starting to open up this whole idea of adding assists as a stat. Just go for it.
I love it.
Yeah, me too. But when I look at him, he had a brilliant game. Wayne Conradi, I think, had even better game. Same thing as Schumacher. Schumacher and Conradi had, Conradi had like the most game lines crossed, so they were able to get into the defense a lot more. Houston's defense, the most tackles, most carries, actually tied with Schumacher. So those two were workhorses. AJ Alatumu had a great game, however, missing a couple key points from the tee. Holland's Head, he missed 1 from the tee, 13 points for that dude. He's a guy who came out, I'm like, who's Dan Holland's Head? So good to see him. But the usual people stepped up and made this game. As they went, Drake Davis had a great try late in the game. Sam Carrad scored, of course, for Free Jacks. I mentioned Balacano's 2 tries. Brock Webster nearly had a brilliant try off of hustle and speed, very much Reese McDonald-like. But then AJ Alatimu had a better defensive play, holding that ball up. So that was fantastic between the both. And obviously the finals, every player plays their asses off. And at the end of the game, you could just tell how much it meant to both teams. And you could just see the sadness. Alatimu he collapsed. You can tell he just was like, what else do I need to do to get a championship kind of thing? And
how many times now has he has he been in the MLR final? And unfortunately, been on the side that comes up just a little bit short.
Against New England again too, right? He was with Seattle last year. I think it's, remember that correctly?
Wait a second. If you can't beat them, you join them. Let's hope AJ doesn't decide to go to the Free Jacks next year.
Well, Patros is hopefully coming back, but
it sounds like he is, and it sounds like there was a funny moment at the Fan Fest where Matt McCarthy seemed to call you guys out, even though you guys had no questions about what was that.
He called me out twice, like Bill Baker said. I'm like,
what do you mean?
What? McCarthy. He came up to me after. He said, "Hey man, just trying to get more clicks." I'm like, appreciate it.
But Patros is coming back, like that. Yeah. We're joking around, but Matt McCarthy jokingly said that you said that Jason Patros was retiring, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" What are you talking about?
Everyone's looking at me in the crowd, like I.
So, Bill, I mean, I guess that leads me to my question. A lot of people are asking this naturally. I mean, one, do you think New England, as it stands right now, like, how do you like their chances of getting a 4th straight?
I mean, I don't think you can think otherwise. I think they have a very good chance. You're looking at the players coming back. Like I said, Patros is definitely coming back. I don't know who's going to be leaving this roster. Obviously, it's really early to tell who's going to be leaving. Yeah. A lot of, I see some players retiring. Josh Larson's probably going to retire. I can't. I'm not confirming that, but he's didn't play a lot. He's getting up there, but a big guy off the bench. And Jason Patros, Kyle Sekera. He's a fan favorite. My personal feelings, I don't think he's that good of a prop, but he gets in there and he does well. It's like, but he's not going anywhere, so he'll be a good backup. Their starting tight head went down with injury earlier, so he looks pretty banged up. I'm not sure if he'll be back or not, but you can't really go against him until they prove otherwise, right?
Yeah, and if you're a player on the fence, or even if you're a player around the league and you have a chance to join New England and go for a 4th straight, like, how do you turn that down? And yes, the rest of the league is caught up, right? Like Houston's super close, and Chicago obviously in the mix. DC is flirting with contention. Utah obviously put together a great season. Obviously, all the MLR clubs outside of New England want to prevent them to fourth straight. But yeah, right now I would be like, dang, I can't believe it. But I think New England's got the pole position on a fourth straight. But another question, though, is with every offseason, there's going to be changes, right? We saw Scott Matthew leave New England after, 2 straight MLR championships to move on to, another opportunity. Obviously, Ryan Martin came back and rejoined New England. Now he's won a championship. I'm not suggesting that he is leaving, but
Right.
if you're, a club around the world and you see what Ryan Martin did, given the pressure of like, hey, you have to follow a guy who's won 2 straight. But New England started off slow, turned around, ended up winning. There's some pedigree there. He could potentially be lured away to another thing. So like, there's obviously going to be some off-season changes. There's going to be some player movement.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what New England does. The other question back to you is, will you be surprised if it's relatively quiet off season in terms of no teams folding and or no new teams being announced?
Yeah, I think it will be quiet. I feel like in the past years we've already heard, whispers about a new team coming in, or I think Toronto's going. We've heard things by now.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully it is quiet. You know what I mean? And there isn't anything big. Another team, sure, I wouldn't mind seeing one added, but in Canada possibly. But I haven't heard anything, man. I don't even know. Like, it would just be, a stab in the dark for me to say yes or no. Yourself, what do you think?
I think a quiet off season would be good
Yes.
for the league. So just be like, okay, stability. We're not losing a squad, even if we're not adding yet. At least there's some stability. There are some rumors circulating about a team down south, but it sounds like, given how the season went, those things it may not play out, which would be great because, like, again, you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose anybody. It'll be interesting to also see what's going to happen with Anthem. What I mean by that, right, is we saw the news reports about potentially World Rugby wanting to work with USA Rugby and others to put a team together for Super Rugby, which sounds pretty wild.
It does, yeah.
But I really like the concept of Anthem, and I'm not suggesting that Anthem is going away at all, but with, rumors and all that stuff, it's fun I shouldn't say it's fun, but people's minds will race about what that all means. So I hope Anthem's not going anywhere.
So what would that be? Basically all, Nana going to Charlotte if it's Super Rugby team, let's say, are they all going to go over there? And then what's that mean for the MLR teams? I mean, New England only has really one real Eagle. Joe Johnston has decided not to do it.
Well, Geiger and Fricker,
right. Fricker's in Charlotte now.
Yep.
And other teams, Utah at one point, pretty much they were concentrating on USA qualified players, and then they said, you know what, we want to win games. And made changes. The Free Jacks roster, you look at this, I was thinking about it earlier. They don't really go to other teams. If I remember correctly, they haven't really picked up players that left their other teams or made moves for them. It's mostly from NPC or, Southern Hemisphere players, and Northern, obviously, we're Canada South. So, and then you look at the coaches just a minute ago, like Scott Matthew, he was on our show this time last year, if you remember this correctly, this show. And he didn't say anything about it. And literally soon after we posted the show, he announced he's going over to the Glasgow Warriors.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, well, you couldn't have mentioned it on our show?
Yeah. Right. Come on, Scott.
Hey. So, it's interesting to see. Hopefully we don't lose any teams. I wouldn't mind gaining. I think the teams are really getting more and more level. Miami played well this year. I think Old Glory could have done better. I wish they did better, to tell you the truth. I'm not just saying that for you. They did sweep the Free Jacks. That is one thing.
They did. That is correct.
Yeah.
But something that we have talked about before on other shows, and it's not a new idea, but given that the U.S. was going to be hosting the Rugby World Cup in 2031, and obviously World Rugby is very interested in making sure there's a very competitive men's Eagles team, right? Like that goes far. And given the fact that Canada used to have a Major League Rugby team in Toronto, there's some thought about why can't World Rugby, maybe Major League Rugby, and more so Rugby Canada work out some idea where essentially they have like an anthem team that's based in Canada, right? So you get funding from kind of three different sources, but it's really Rugby Canada and World Rugby, right? Because the idea there is that for the men's Eagles to get better, Canada needs to be a really strong side, right? And yes, there's a lot of Canadian players in Major League Rugby, which is fantastic. But if we want, rising tide lifts all boats, then we need a competitive side in Canada, in North America, to be playing the men's Eagles all the time, because we want Canada to qualify for the World Cup too. So it's like, it'd be fun for them to be able to figure that out. Now, if that is the case, what does that mean for a team like the Free Jacks that does have a strong Canadian presence? Do those guys decide to say, okay, yeah, I can play closer to home, so to speak, and put one there? I would love for a team in Canada again, and it'd be cool to do an anthem type thing in Major League Rugby, but that would require a lot of money, and don't know how that looks.
Yeah, and that would be actually for them. It probably makes more sense. It would be one team, let's say Vancouver or back in Toronto, and that literally could be most of the Canadian players, not like Anthem, where they're developing American players, other than Mooneyham and anyone else in the team. Yeah, other than them. But one thing I wanted to say a minute ago about Free Jacks, they nearly had Ruben DeHaas at number 9 early in the year. So Ruben was going back and forth between New England, NOLA, and another team. And I was just thinking about it. Peter DeHaas and I were communicating the other day, and I almost wanted to ask him, why did he choose New Orleans? It's just curious. Not a judgment or anything like that. Just curious what it was. Was it the heat? Did he think he had a better chance playing? He didn't play much. That's surprising to me. Did he not play much because he's only on a 1-year deal and they wanted to stick with their other guy? I don't know. So, and then New England did have issues. Obviously, John Poland was out. But, the current scrum half played great. He's been playing great for a while. So it wasn't really a loss with him. But it just, you think about someone like Rubens. Like, why not a team like New England or Chicago or something like that? Yeah. All right, Fitzy. Good stuff. One question for you. Was there something over the weekend that was the most memorable for you as far as rugby goes?
Ooh, wow, that was yeah. I think I'll go big picture here. You had 2 championship games on weekend in the U.S. Right? Major League Rugby had their 8th MLR championship, and they had Women's Elite Rugby with the Legacy Cup, their first championship. Denver Onyx won there again. We talked about it with Wendy Young, a team. Denver just packed full of USA Women's Eagles. I think that's a big picture moment. That's pretty neat, right? 2 major championship games in rugby here in the U.S. a week before July Test kickoff with the USA Men's Eagles, a few months before the USA Women's Eagles start their campaign for Rugby World Cup 2025. So I think there's everyone's starting to row in the same direction as it relates to rugby in the U.S. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a lag effect where I think things are building, which is great and encouraging. So for me, it's like, let's pause and take a moment to see how far we've come over just say like the last few years, but also realize like how much more we need to go as we get closer to 31. So for me, I think that was pretty exciting to see. Saturday, Sunday, 2 big championships back to back ahead of a very important summer.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And for me, it was the presentation of actually both games. I mean, there was a lot more presentation in the MLR match, obviously, but even the WER match, I thought good to hear Wendy there. Some really good talent on those teams. The MLR, one thing for me, the broadcast quality was really, really important for those non-rugby fans to see when they turned it on. 2, it was a really good feeling, especially around FanFest, how open rugby is to everybody. And what I mean by that is running into, say, guys like Mike Ross, Patros is there also. It's just like able to walk up to them and not them look at you like, hey, I'm busy, but they really want to talk the game. And they gave us and you Fantasy Record, everyone, a lot of credit also. They would come up to us and say, thank you for doing this. We really love having you guys here, kind of thing. So it feels good. It felt really good, and it motivates me and everyone else to do more. And being in that fan fest really was cool. And to have people come up and actually sit there and watch us and maybe pick their nose while they watch us, whatever. But still, it's it's something. So anyway, I think it's a step forward. I'm always trying to be positive about the growth in this game. Of course, there are some negatives here and there, but there are some people out there that are being really negative about things. But as I said on a post, that's where we are with the game right now, and that's actually good. 10 years ago, there really wasn't this venue of people yelling, getting their frustrations out. But the fact that we have this league and rugby at a level where you can have that, and you want that every so often too. So it's good. But yeah, that's it, man. Good stuff. And really exciting last weekend. We got, I don't know how many days till first match MLR next year. We'll figure that out eventually when the league knows what the schedule is. Hopefully no teams added to the last second like they did 2 years ago. But yeah, man, what's next for you, Fitzy? Are you actually, maybe for our listeners, how's Rugby Morning going?
Yeah, I've got to get that done. Now that I've kind of settled after the move, I'm going to restart that. But I think I'm going to do something a little bit different. It's something I've been thinking about for a bit, because Rugby Morning was a daily, and it was like sharing the news without like opinion or anything like that. And I think what I want to do, given the change of things, is make it more. I think it's going to move to a weekly, kind of like a Sunday night, Monday morning, with my opinions and thoughts about maybe like big things for the week, right?
Yeah.
So like I can share some news, but maybe more opinion based, good, bad, or indifferent. Encourage people to join the conversation. So I'm thinking through that, but I think that's what the format will be moving forward here in a little bit. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be easier, and again, I think it'll be hopefully more conversation starter as opposed to just straight sharing links out. So we'll see. Yeah.
Cool, man. I will be hiding in New York until Saturday, so that's where I am.
Nice.
All right, Fitzy, good stuff. We'll chat again soon.
Good stuff. All right, Bill.